Born in the void. Crow was born in a secluded village hidden deep in the vast desert, surrounded by endless dunes and towering rocks. This village, although isolated from the world, was known for its skilled hunters and adept poison makers. The people who lived there, like Crow's family, were masters of both the natural world and the deadly substances they crafted. They had lived for generations in harmony with the harsh desert, learning its secrets and thriving under its unforgiving sky. But Crow, even as a young child, had a restlessness about him. While the village elders taught him to track prey and brew lethal toxins, he was always drawn to stories that came from far beyond the borders of his homeland. He would sneak into the campfire circle at night, listening intently to the travelers and wanderers who spoke of the Brawl Arena, a place where the strongest and most fearless fighters gathered to prove their worth. The stories painted a world unlike anything Crow had ever known, a place of relentless combat, where only the strongest emerged victorious, and where glory awaited those who could survive the fiercest battles. Crow dreamed of this arena from the time he was a child. He wanted more than the life his village offered. He wanted to fight, to prove himself on a stage far grander than the quiet, desolate dunes where he had grown up. But fate had other plans for him. As much as he yearned to escape, Crow knew deep down that his path would not be easy. It would be filled with hardships, and his first test came sooner than expected. Fire and ashes. That fateful night, when the winds howled across the sand, was the night that would change Crow's life forever. His village, once a place of peace and tradition, was under attack by ruthless bandits. They were not just after the small, humble life of the villagers. No, they were after something far more valuable, the rare and potent poisons that Crow's people had perfected over generations. These poisons, used both for healing and assassination, were coveted by those who sought power, and the bandits were willing to do anything to take them. Crow's family had always told him that the desert could be a place of survival for those who were prepared, but nothing could have prepared him for the horrors of that night. The night sky was lit up with the orange glow of fire as the village burned. Screams echoed through the air as the bandits raided their homes. Crow rushed to protect his family, but the difference in strength was too vast. He was only a boy, small, quick, but still far too young to face such a deadly force. In the chaos, Crow's thoughts raced. He could hear his mother's voice calling out for him as she ran from the flames, but there was nothing he could do. His efforts were futile. The flames consumed everything they touched. As the last of the village fell to ruin, Crow was left alone in the ashes, kneeling amid the smoldering ruins of his past life. The fire wasn't just the end of his village, it was the beginning of his true path. In the burning remnants of his home, he made a promise to himself. He would become strong enough to never again be powerless. No one would be able to take what was his. No one would be able to destroy him or those he cared about. He would survive, and he would seek vengeance for his fallen family. First steps on the arena. Crow's journey to the Brawl Arena wasn't a quick one. After leaving the charred remains of his village behind, he wandered the deserts, struggling to survive. It was during this time that he discovered the true weight of his isolation. He was no longer just an outcast from his own family. He was now an outcast from the world itself. To survive, he had to embrace his cunning, adapt quickly, and use whatever resources were available. The Brawl Arena was his destination, but it wasn't just a place for show. It was a proving ground for warriors who could withstand not only physical pain, but also the mental challenges of survival. It was here that Crow finally understood the difference between surviving and thriving. When Crow entered the arena for his first fight, he felt the weight of every choice he had made up to that point. His opponent was brutal, experienced, and seemingly unbeatable. But Crow had something the other fighters didn't: his speed and agility. His mastery over poison gave him an edge, but it was his speed that made him a formidable opponent. The battle was quick but intense. Crow dodged the strikes of his opponent and retaliated with deadly precision. His blades, dipped in lethal toxins, became the weapon he was known for. By the end of the match, his opponent was lying unconscious, and the crowd erupted in applause. This victory earned Crow his first nickname, the Poisonous Crow. But it wasn't just his skill in combat that caught the attention of others. It was his unwavering resolve, his drive to be the best. He wasn't fighting for fame or glory, he was fighting for his survival, for the promise he had made to himself in the ashes of his village. The arena was now his home, and he had only just begun to carve his name into its blood-stained floors. As Crow walked away from the arena after his first win, the weight of the battle was still on his shoulders. He knew that this was only the beginning. The arena held even greater dangers, and only the strongest survived. But Crow was no longer just a survivor. He had become a fighter, and he would stop at nothing to become the strongest. New allies Crow had always relied solely on himself. In the arena, everyone was for themselves, and trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. But destiny had different plans for him. It led him to two unlikely allies, Leon and Spike. Leon was quick and cunning, a master of stealth who could vanish in the blink of an eye. Their encounter occurred after a particularly intense battle when Crow noticed a shadow trailing him. Crow, being the expert hunter, tried to catch him, but Leon was too fast. Eventually, Leon revealed himself, grinning slyly. "You're fast, but not fast enough to catch me," Leon teased. Crow, never one for chatter, instantly recognized that Leon was no ordinary fighter. He was a predator too, someone who relied on speed and instincts just like him. This was no time for petty games. Leon was his equal in every way, and Crow knew there was value in having someone like him by his side. The third ally came in the form of the enigmatic Spike. No one knew where he came from, and Spike never spoke a word. The first time Crow encountered Spike, he wasn't sure whether to trust him. With a quizzical look, he asked, "He's a fighter too?" Without answering, Spike raised his hand and tossed a cactus grenade at Crow's feet. Crow barely managed to leap out of the way before the grenade exploded, releasing a cloud of toxic gas. It was then that Crow understood. Spike was far more dangerous than he appeared. The silent cactus had a certain ferocity that Crow couldn't ignore. The trio had an unspoken understanding. They didn't need to discuss their pasts or share personal details. They were bound by one thing: survival. In the heat of battle, they knew that each one of them would cover for the other, each one watching the back of the others in a dangerous world where trust was scarce. This is how the legendary trio was formed: the elusive thief, the silent cactus, and the poisonous killer. Together, they would become a force to be reckoned with in the Brawl Arena. The path to legend. Now, Crow stood as one of the deadliest fighters in the arena. His poisoned blades struck fear into his enemies. His unmatched speed made him almost impossible to catch, and his harrowing past had tempered his resolve. Every fight was a reminder that he had grown far beyond the boy who had once lost everything. Yet, in the world of Brawl Stars, each day brought new challenges, new adversaries, and new tests of strength. Crow wasn't fighting for glory. He was fighting to prove to himself that he was no longer weak. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Crow was now a force to be reckoned with. Very soon, our heroes will meet a new heroine, and what happens next, you'll find out in the next episode. Subscribe and hit the like button so you don't miss the next chapter.